Imagine losing your home, your children, and your job, and maybe even most important, your reputation. That's the foundation for everything. Not because something you did, but because of a system designed to favor women. Now, this isn't some kind of a dystopian conspiracy or even the plot of a bad B-grade movie. It's reality, a reality for millions of men. Not one or two, but millions of men. In this video, we'll cover how on the surface, the feminist movement started with demands for equality, but has led to a legal system that punishes men while giving women unchecked power. Now, we're going to cover three key areas to do this: family courts, false accusations, and workplace bias. Yes, there's dozens more, but we're going to keep it to those three today. Hi, I'm Jason, and like many of you, I've been through the ringer of the horrors of modern male-bashing society with no way to find the help and support I needed. This channel is about helping you find that help. So let's dive into today's video, starting with the family court bias against men. Now, the reality of family courts is that 90% of custody cases favor mothers, even if the father is clearly the better parent. I'm going to give you my little personal story on that. At the early stage of separation, when my ex-wife and I were just beginning to go into the court process, I got a panic call one morning, and she's, Jason. And what happened was she woke up after a night of partying and found our little 18-month-old daughter on the floor in the bathroom with a bottle, an empty bottle of pills that were the illegal pills that my ex-wife had been partying on the night before. But there were supposed to be some pills left, and she couldn't find the pills. She didn't know if our little girl had taken the pills or whatever. So I got the doctor on the phone, and I literally physically ran up the hill. We had apartments not too far from each other, ran up the hill with a bottle of Ipecac. And Ipecac is what hospitals and doctors give to create projectile vomiting. You hear pump the stomach. Well, that's what that does. So there's no physical pumping. They give you this thing that causes. Well, anyway, I gave the baby the Ipecac. She threw up, and yes, there was a handful of drugs, pills, in the baby's vomit. She would have died if all of those pills had been dissolved into her little baby system. I basically saved the baby's life, and this is on record with the doctors. They make, notes and all that. So, of course, we subpoenaed that, took it into the courts. She won, hands down. Even though she could have cost our child's life, and that was just one of many, many incidents. So that's just my story. How many of you guys have the same one? Child support laws treat fathers as ATMs, not as parents, but hey, you just pay. Now, of course, fathers pay child support no matter what. You have custody, you don't see the kids, no matter what, you pay child support. Okay, in some ways, I can even kind of support that. Not all the junk, but I can support the idea of supporting your own kids. They're your kids. But in many states, by law, stepfathers have to pay child support for her kids. They're not his biological kids. She brought them in. It doesn't matter how many baby daddies there are. They're her kids, and you, by law, have to pay child support until those kids are grown. No fault divorce. Now, when I was a young man, remember, way, way back when, you had to have a fault. You had to find your wife or your husband having sex with someone else. It had to be a legitimate reason. But no fault divorce came in, and that is a system that is rigged against men. How so? Well, women initiate 70 to 80% of divorces, and they almost always win financially. That's right. They initiate, they get child support, and they win financially. Now, a man, that's us, can lose his home, his savings, his access to his children, his pension overnight. Now, the courts don't care if the wife was caught cheating or even if she was committing crimes. Men still pay. And in the case of the man with means, he still pays alimony, which has nothing to do with his children. She cheats, she bashes, she does violence, whatever it is, she gets paid because she's a woman and the courts award it to her. Parental alienation and loss of fatherhood. Now, just one of the many methods, lots and lots of mothers use false abuse claims to block fathers from even seeing their kids. Zero communication. Whoa. False abuse claims. We'll come back to that in a second. But what's more insidious, or maybe say more frequent, is many, many more mothers just kind of drip hatred about their ex-husbands, poisoning the man's children against him. That happens all the time. I can't tell you how many men I talk to about that. Now, the next flip side of that is fatherlessness leads to crime. So those kids are now fatherless, leads to crime, depression, social dysfunction. But the courts don't care. They still allow this. Now, furthermore, not only do the courts not care, but here's a worse example of the court's bias. A man is falsely accused of abuse to his children. He loses custody, he loses contact, but when the truth comes out, maybe in a few months or maybe in a few years, but the courts don't care. Nothing happens to the woman. False accusations just kind of go, oh, well, that was our bad. Number 3, false accusations and the Me Too culture. The power of a woman's word, that the whole thing, the believe all women culture, means that evidence isn't even required anymore. False accusations destroy careers, families, reputations overnight without any evidence being required. And here's a good example. Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. This is a famous one, so I pull it out. Even with proof of his innocence, it took years to clear his name. Now, in the case of somebody like Johnny Depp, not only was it years to clear his name, think of the millions, if not tens of millions of dollars that he lost because he was blacklisted from Hollywood. He couldn't get work. That's why I talk about that reputation. That is devastatingly powerful. University and Title IX injustice. Men are expelled from college with no trial or evidence based on accusations alone. And campus hearings ignore any due process. Accused men, you're the guy. You don't even get to have lawyers or fair trials. Now, you don't even get to talk to your accuser. Often, you won't even get to see the person. Now, it depends on who you are and where you come from and all of the family connections, but a lot of young men have committed suicide after being falsely accused. Pretty amazing. And the accuser, lack of punishment. No punishment for false accusers. Now, false accusers rarely face consequences. Women can lie and walk away free. Feminists actively protect false accusers from legal repercussions. Now, here an example, a famous one, and it's important because it was so famous and it was so long ago. The Duke lacrosse case came up in 2006. Now, lives were destroyed. Duke, a high-level school, but the accuser walked away. I put two links in the description for you. One that kind of details the overview of the case, because 20 years ago, who remembers, right? But the second part is a video that came out just a few months ago where the woman who made it all up is on video, on a podcast, saying, yeah, I made it all up. She's admitting it to the world, and zero, absolutely no consequences for that. Ruined lives, walks away free. Next, we're going to look at workplace bias and feminist power in corporate America. Diversity and inclusion, which, by the way, thank God, is starting to go away. But that culture is embedded in men losing jobs over affirmative action, which promotes what? Women over men. And just because it's legally going away doesn't mean the culture is not there. And it doesn't mean the men who have lost jobs haven't been damaged. Lots and lots and lots of pain over the past years. So quotas and hiring practices punish men, especially white and Asian men. An example is if you do a search for James Damore, and he was fired because he criticized feminist bias, not a female, not his boss, just the feminist bias in their hiring practices. He was fired. And because of Google's power, he was quietly, we say, bought off. We don't know. There's no settlement. There's no language, anything. But somehow the suit went away. Sexual harassment laws, the end of workplace fairness. HR departments side with women automatically in harassment claims. A simple complaint, even if false, can get a man fired immediately. And it's not just the mid-range guys that happens. At the very top executive level. I know personally of a man who was at a very high level. He was abrasive as a personality, but he did nothing wrong. And the woman who got hired immediately in the subordinate position told her husband, I'm going to get him fired because I want that job. She went in the next day and, made a false accusation that during a business dinner, and they're at the level where that happened on a regular basis, he made inappropriate comments or whatever. He was fired. He was fired. Absolutely. That's just one anecdotal. But who am I? I'm just a guy. I'm just a regular guy. And I hear these stories over and over and over. Well, what's the result of that? Is men avoid mentoring or interacting with female colleagues to protect themselves. Why? Because guys have lost their jobs. What's the result? Men are quietly quitting the workforce. Men are checking out, avoiding marriage, dating, corporate careers. Really? Well, marriage is at the all-time low, not the low in the last 20, 30, 40, all-time low in the United States. Dating, all-time low. Huge numbers of men 18 to 20 to 35, the typical dating age, nothing. Huge. They don't even want to go out on dates. Corporate careers, well over 70% of college graduates are female, women. They're the ones that are doing the corporate career climb. Men are not. Because feminine has made the workplaces hostile to masculine energy, hostile to men. So another result is the rise of big town men going their own way as a response to feminine power. It's just not worth it. As they say, the juice is not worth the squeeze. Some guys are MGTOW for now, and some are MGTOW monk for the rest of their lives. But they're definitely not getting married, they're not dating. So let's go over what we've looked at so far. We've looked at the family courts, which destroy fatherhood, steal money from men, and reward women for lying, cheating, and leaving. False accusations ruin lives instantly with no due process or consequences for the liars. Workplace bias. Feminism has turned corporate America into an anti-male environment. Terrible place to be. Now, my final thoughts are feminists want dominance, not equality. Unfortunately, to an astonishing degree, they have accomplished that dominance through modern society. And men, like you and I, have paid the price through abuse and trauma. So if you're a man interested in reaching out for help, please contact me via my website or the email address in the description. If you're a male mental health professional interested in working with men who want your services, please contact me via my website or the email address in the description. Thank you for watching.